Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.
This is Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Lisa Catallo's Empowered to Lead podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more shows like hers and to grab your free gift from the gift fold, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. This podcast is specifically for people who have been building up their therapy practice and then started and grown a group practice. And so a lot of the theme that we have for this summer is really once you have an established group practice, you've got different pain points as a leader and as a business owner. And so hearing stories from people across Canada as group practice owners and how they have dealt with those challenges and grown as leaders, and even just to get some solutions as you're thinking through how would this work for my group practice. And so I'm really excited to have Haley Moore on today and sharing some of her story. We're going to be focusing a bit on her hiring process and what that has looked like. A lot of us struggle to get a really good or to identify our ideal therapist, let alone find them and retain them and what all that looks like. So excited to hear a little bit about what that process has looked like for you, Haley. Before we get started, just a little intro of yourself, where you are, a little picture of what your group practice looks like now, and then we'll dig into some questions.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's an honor to be here today. So like Lisa said, I'm Haley. I am the founder of Therapy Uninterrupted for a virtual group practice located in Ontario. Right now we practice virtually, but we are expanding into some walk and talk and considering an in-person space. So that's
so cool.
Fun stuff coming. But for right now, we're a team of 6, about to be 7. And we have therapists that are registered psychotherapists, as well as registered social workers like myself.
Okay.
And yeah, we have different modalities that each therapist brings to the table, but we do serve adults, couples, individuals, and groups.
Awesome. How long has your practice been going?
Yeah, so I started in solo practice in 2021, and then I transitioned into group practice officially August 2024. But technically, the year before, I incorporated and started getting everything going. But yeah, official launch August 2024. So we're not super old, but we're almost 2 years old. So.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you here. One of the questions that I try to ask everybody is, how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I think that's a really good question. And when I was preparing for this interview, I kind of thought about it a bit more, and I really didn't know the answer, which was interesting.
Okay.
So when I reflected on it a bit more, I think my leadership is really around collaboration. I think I've spent a lot of my time not seeing myself as a leader, which has allowed me to actually lean heavy into getting people's opinions and, being a team player. And I think that has shifted over time. I'm much more able to make decisions by myself now than I was in the beginning, but I still think I'm a very collaborative person. And I think that's why I built a group. And in the long and short of it, I wanted to be able to collaborate. I didn't want to make decisions in a silo. I didn't want it to be just me. So I think, some of my best decisions have come from my team, where they said, hey, could we think about this? Could we try that? Or this is great, but what about this? They're so creative and wonderful, and I'm very lucky to have them. And I really think my job as a leader is to create an environment where my team feels valued, they feel challenged, they feel supported, they feel like they can grow, they feel like I see their strengths, they see that I actually want them to continue to be bigger and bolder. And I think that when therapists are thriving, clients are more likely to thrive, and they see that. So yeah, I think my job as a leader is to really facilitate that. And yeah, my style, I think, is mostly through collaboration.
So I imagine that shows up in your hiring process too?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
Walk me through what your experience has been, because a lot of us start out in one way as a leader, in one way in how we bring people on, and then that shifts and changes as we grow as leaders, and even like identifying who do I want on my team and what does that look like? How has that process looked for you?
Yeah. So great question. I started in a very specific, intentional way. So I have a background in hospital social work, and in that system, I had student therapists or student social workers, sorry. So I actually wanted to start with students, and I thought that would be a way to, again, have collaboration. Like they're learning, I'm learning. It made it feel a little bit less intimidating to have someone on my team. So my first hire was a student therapist, and she came on, September 2024. So right after I kind of opened all the doors, and she was a huge piece of figuring out how the systems I had created worked, trial and erroring, really. But I think, coming into that, it was really important for me to make sure that I was going to be able to choose who was going to be a part of my team. And I specifically chose someone who had time in the field. She wasn't a brand new grad that was going into her master's program. She had experience. But really what I was looking for is maturity, being able to be a self-starter, right? Like this is a virtual practice. I'm not going to be holding hands. I'm not going to be troubleshooting every minute of every day. Like I needed someone who was going to be able to take care of themselves and who I could trust. And obviously trust takes time, but there is something inherent about somebody that you kind of feel like they are either a trustworthy or untrustworthy person from the hop. What I didn't know then that I've now been able to pinpoint is that through that first hire and then bringing my team together, which started a few months later. So my first hire as an independent contractor was December of 2024. But what I've learned over the time that I've been hiring is that the thing I'm really looking for is a therapist who is confident in themselves. And that seems like it's not important. Like, why would that matter? But I really think that is at the crux of everything else. Like it all kind of comes together. Like even if we think about dating, if you boil it down, the thing we're actually looking for is confidence. We want someone who knows that they want us because they know themselves and they know what they need and they know what they want. And they've done that experimentation. They've been real with themselves to know that, we're it, right? And that confidence translates into the job they do and the way they hold themselves and the way we can rely on them and trust them. And I actually think that hiring and building a team is a lot like dating in that way. Confidence is attractive in a therapist, whether you're a client or whether you're an employer. And that ability to hold yourself in a certain way, show up in a certain way, be consistent and transparent in a certain way, like all of those things are really important to having a good therapist and having a good teammate. And that's what I've learned over time. The people that I have interviewed or hired on and didn't work out, those people weren't as true to themselves. They were either hoping that they could become what they wanted to be or hoping I could be what they wanted me to be, but it wasn't as transparent. It wasn't as confidence ridden. And the way that someone shows up in a room is important when you're building a team.
Yeah. It goes to everything. Hey, like what's the consult looks like? How do you book the next session? How do you show up as a team member? It filters through a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. If you are looking for a therapist, you don't want someone who's unsure of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. You want someone who knows the value they're bringing to the table. They know how they can help you. They know how they can't help you. They're willing to say, I don't know, or that's not me. Like that's the kind of trust, honesty, integrity that you want in a team player and a teammate and in a therapist. And that is why I really think it all boils down to confidence at the end of the day. Yeah.
So walk me through your hiring process. Like now that you've identified that that's a key characteristic, what are all the steps that you take to bring on a team member?
Yeah. And again, built over time. I think in the beginning, I was like, "Ooh, I like this person. Let's hire them."
Yep.
So that was the process in the beginning. No, obviously, kind of joking, kind of not. Even in the beginning, I had an interview process. I've kind of built questions based on things that I've been asked in the past, or things I've found in different areas, and built a bit of an interview process. But I have changed that over time. But the most important pieces are before hiring even starts. So, knowing what you actually are looking for. Do you need someone to be filling evenings or weekends? Are you looking for a certain modality, a certain population, a certain, type of person, a certain gender of therapist? Like, what are you actually looking for? And you need to know what you're trying to fill before you can actually set expectations of what that person is going to be. It's, I always say this to clients, and I think it's very relevant here too, that how do you know how to get somewhere if you don't know what the destination is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time finding something if you don't know where you're going. So you have to first figure out where am I trying to go with this? What's my goal? I think it's, knowing the type of, niche that you want them to go into. And maybe your group practice has a niche, maybe it's more general and you're trying to fill a certain pocket that is missing, doing some market research of what is actually out there, what needs to be done. But I think it's also, how long do I want to take in this hiring process? If I need someone now because I have a wait list of 6 months, and that's already too late in lots of ways. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do, but ideally, you want to be foreseeing. Yeah, in a few months, I'll probably be full myself, or my team will be full, and I'll need more space, or whatever it is. So it's really being methodical about when you're hiring, as well as who you're trying to choose to hire.
Yeah,
and then also thinking about the type of person you want to have in your team. So what is your team culture? Do you know what that looks like? Do you have definitions of that? But also, what is the kind of person that you want to be spending time with, right? Like, what's their communication like? Do they have good grammar and spelling? Like, do you want someone who's a student therapist, a new therapist, a super experienced therapist? Like, what is going to be able to fit within your practice right now? What are your practice values in terms of like anti-oppressive practice, LGBTQ plus experiences? Are you more client focused? Are you neurodiversity affirming? Like, what is the lived experience that you want your therapist to have, if any? And then also, again, on that personal side, confidence, integrity, humility, respect, transparency, all of these things that you need to know before you even try to find somebody, as well as what do they need to have? Again, like, do they need to know how to use an Excel sheet? Like, for my practice, everyone's got to figure out how to use a Google Drive and a Google Sheet and, send me an invoice every month that's all done electronically. Like, we use Owl Practice, which is a virtual platform, just like Jane. Like, you need to be able to have some amount of tech capacity, but again, being virtual, any practice, but especially virtually, you also have to be a self-starter. I cannot micromanage a team, so I need you to be able to do it. And that's something that not every therapist wants or needs. All those things I think are really important before you even start.
In the coaching and in the group practice connection, that's a lot of what I'm talking about too, is like, who is your ideal therapist, as opposed to, well, this feels really good kind of thing, right? So who do I like to lead? Who do I not like to lead? What kind of personality works well for our team culture? And then, what hole are they filling, and what kinds of trainings? And it's a big consideration before you even put that posting out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And again, like you have tons of training on this because we don't know how to do this. This isn't something that we intuitively learn as a therapist. We know how to say like, gut check, do I like this person? But that's kind of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, so that is an important part of it too. You do need to like them. So what I've started to do more recently in the last year or so is whenever I meet with somebody that's potentially going to join my team in any capacity, I do a 15-minute kind of meet and greet. So I'm not asking about their clinical skills. I'm not really asking about them so much as a team member, but more just as a therapist, as a person. So it's give me a live version of your resume, send me your resume, tell me why you want to be here, what do you expect of this role, like what do you actually think is going to happen within this, what's your career plan, your trajectory, and what you're looking for in that time is it's very non-committal. 15 minutes, everyone has 15 minutes. You're not wasting your time. You're not wasting their time. It's really just a good vibe check. But you're also looking for, do they want the same thing you are looking for? Do they want do they want to be here long term? Do they want a boss? Do they want to do their own work, or do they want to have everything done for them? I'm just at a stage now that I'm going to be hiring an administrator, but that wasn't a thing that I could offer people beforehand. So if they have been in a group practice before that had all these administrative things done for them, that's all things my therapists do, right? Yes. So there's, what are their expectations? Can you meet them? And what are your expectations? Can they meet them? And you're not going to know everything within that 15 minutes, but you're going to have a pretty good idea just based on some questions about what do you expect? What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Like, you at least have a good idea of the collaboration that would be possible within this meeting.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is that this is your 15-minute free consult with your therapist or the potential therapist, right?
Yes.
What would a client feel in that time period? If you feel uncomfortable, a client will feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right. And I think it's an interesting kind of process. Looking
Do they show up professionally?
Professional, yes.
Yeah. Do they know how to click the right button?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Exactly. And like that I really encourage everyone to trust your gut. If your gut says something is off, you're right. And that's it. Like 15 minutes, you're going to know something's wrong. And that's okay. Like, it's just not a good fit. And it doesn't have to make sense logically. And I think that's where we need to really buy into our intuition as therapists. We're good at this. This is the thing we're good at, trusting our gut, knowing our gut is right. We know how to work with people. We know when people are, our kind of people. If it's not there, like, you can't train empathy or warmth or self-knowledge, confidence. Like, you can't train those things. You can train modality, you can train in systems, you can train in operations. Like, you can't train the kind of person they are.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's just the truth.
Okay.
So that's kind of stage one.
Okay. So you do the screening and then you decide, they can come for an interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's also a 2-part process.
Okay.
So the first interview, I usually bring in one of my other supervisors on my team to sit in with me, so that it's not just my opinion. I think that's also an important thing.
Yes.
To have team members. They have to also be a good fit to some degree. And it's just good to have a second opinion.
Yeah. I was talking with an employment lawyer, and he actually said, like, it's wise to have somebody else in the room, even just like you sometimes have rose-colored glasses on, and to have somebody else's input. Also talked about like having a rating scale for each question, which I've really appreciated, because in the moment you're responding to how they're answering, but then as you leave, you might not remember it entirely. So to have another voice, to have another checkpoint, super important.
Yeah. I think the rating is a great idea. That's why I do ask every person the same questions.
Yes.
So that I can come back to it and be like, okay, this was a good answer. This was a great answer. What is the difference? I always take notes during the interview, and I let people know that. Like, I do not remember all of these things, and we need to talk about it after. So I'm going to take notes. People do not care. That's fine. You don't have to remember everything. The rating scale sounds like a great addition that I don't personally do, but I think it would be helpful for sure. But that interview, you're looking for, what do they actually have? What skills do they have? What have they been doing? What have they not been doing? I always ask people, what do people usually get wrong about you? I think that's a really interesting question.
That's a good question. I haven't heard that one.
I really enjoy what kind of answers you get from that.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of like the what are your weaknesses, but it's more about interpretation of your weaknesses, which is interesting. I always do a case study just to kind of get their initial kind of clinical skills and what they do know. I ask questions about ethics and diversity, different opinions and values to clients, self-awareness around mistakes, what they like in supervision, what are their professional boundaries, populations they don't want to work with and why, how do they take care of themselves, what do they think they can do better with, right? Like, these I think are all really important questions for sustainability.
Yes.
You don't learn a whole lot about their clinical skills in this interview, though, is what I've kind of found. You learn about them as a therapist and as a person, and a little bit about their clinical background. But I have started to do a second interview more recently to actually do like a bit of a role play with that therapist.
Yes.
So I'll do like an intake session with a potential client. I'll give them a little blurb about what that client is coming to session with, like what they would get in a consult. And then we do a role play of an interview. I ask them to do a treatment plan, all that.
I love that. I think that's such an important part. We used to do, like, they would be in another room and they would have one of our therapists or admin in there, and we would watch from the laptop. And everybody was like, oh my goodness, I'm terrified. And I so value the fact that you were that intentional about who are you bringing on to the team, right? Because the clinical part is huge. And so they can really pour it on in the interview part and sound really lovely, and then sit in a room with someone or even with you in that and just bomb it, or, okay, these are some points that we could work on kind of thing. Yeah, I love that piece. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is important. Both are important. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I will give feedback in those interviews too. I'll say like, hey, yeah, this was great. And I think, for example, I interviewed someone recently that is more short-term. So she's done a lot of short-term therapy, which is great and not something that we have on our team. So it's an asset. And in that intake, she was told it was going to be long-term, and she was still doing very solution-focused short-term. Right. And I pointed that out, like, hey, what about this? And she handled the feedback beautifully. Right. And that's also a skill. Can you take constructive feedback effectively?
Yes.
Right. So those kinds of things are also helpful if you can. Not that you're looking for mistakes or things, like that, but you can kind of test the waters.
Yeah.
But, like you said, Lisa, we're looking for punctuality. Are you being professional? Are you being grateful? Are you, thanking me for the time? I love when someone will follow up with an email after. That's like a gold star experience for me. And not because I'm like, oh, you must thank me for my time. I think it's just a formality. I think it's that just makes it feel like you care about the role.
Yes. Respectful.
So I'm looking for people that care. Yeah, it's respectful. Exactly. I want someone who cares. Right?
Yes.
So things that I look about or I think about afterwards, like when I'm reflecting on, do I really want to hire this person? Would I want them to be my therapist?
Yes.
Would I be with them? And not because they're necessarily like my, they're not going to help me with my issues, but would I be okay with them in a room? Would I go for lunch with them? Would I spend an hour with them just for fun? Right? They don't have to be your friend, but they do have to be someone that's pleasant to be around. If I think about them representing my company, would that make you nervous? Or would I be totally okay with that? If I think about them meeting with one of my clients that I really enjoy while I'm out of office, or if I'm on a leave, would I be okay with that? Or I would be nervous? If they're in the break room with your team, how do they fit in?
Yeah.
Do you want them to accept the offer that you are going to give them? Right? Like, the best hire isn't always the best therapist. It's not necessarily the one with the most experience. It's the one who's a good therapist, a good fit, and really wants to be there.
Yeah. And that consideration too of like the ideal client that is coming to our group practice and the personality around that. And now how are you going to fit? And sometimes we're like, oh, well, I really love them, a little different personality or a little different ideal client. Does that actually fit with where our practice is going? Because if I'm bringing in 50 new clients and you're not a good fit, you might be lovely, but that's not. Yeah. So testing out personality and even the fit in there with you as a leader and with your team and clients, eh?
And that's why it's really important to know what you're looking for first.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you know the gap you're trying to fill, then it's going to be much easier to make sure that therapist would actually fill that gap that you're trying to fill. Yeah. Not like, oh, I like them. They're a good therapist. So let's bring them on. But it doesn't meet any of the parameters I've already decided I need. Well, yeah, that's a bad leadership decision.
Yes.
And that's, when you have to put that leadership hat on and know that you're making a decision for the longevity of your practice, and bringing on the wrong therapist is a bad move, period. Yeah. Even if they're nice people.
Yep. So they make it through the interview. Then what's the next step?
So the next step after that, so I would send them an offer of, I think I call it an independent contractor engagement offer.
Okay.
Because I'm very careful around employment language, as I'm not offering employment for an independent contractor. But yeah, I'll send them an offer letter, which kind of just outlines like, hey, this would be your split. This would be when I'd want you to start. You would need certain things to be able to come join the teams, like the mandatory things, like you need to be a registered professional within the CRPO or the College of Social Workers. You need to hold professional liability insurance. You need to be in good standing. So those things are within the offer letter. And then that I kind of just explained that you'll also have to agree to the agreement, the contractor agreement that would be sent. But this is not the agreement. This is just an offer that if you choose to move forward, we would then go from there. It says a few different things as well, just around legalities. That's generally what the letter says. And then I ask them to accept the offer. And if they do, great. Then I would send them the contract. They would have some time to review it, of course, ask me any questions. I always offer to meet with them. they want to go over the main parameters of the offer or of the contract, sorry. Of course, the offer as well. If they had questions, but that hasn't usually happened.
Yeah.
And then, if they accept the contract, great. Then we hire them. They're onboarded. Yeah.
I actually really like it when somebody comes back and has questions about the contract because they actually read it and not just like, okay, let's sign it and get started. And I don't know what I'm agreeing to.
Yeah. And to be honest, when I've had more negative experiences with hiring, that is usually what had happened.
Yes.
Even though I said some things in the interviews or they had all of it in the contract, there was some surprise somehow about something that I was expecting of them. And it does reflect on, oh, okay, so you didn't read that. You didn't actually, you weren't listening and or you didn't read it or you just heard what you wanted to hear. Like there's a discrepancy there. So I do think I totally agree, Lisa. Like having questions is helpful. Ask questions. It doesn't make me think that you're questioning me or my authority or my practice. It makes me think that you care, that you want to be thorough, that you want to make sure this works for you to not have to let me down later if it doesn't work. Right? Like I'd rather all the questions for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I am a huge proponent for hire slow, fire fast. And your process really fits with that of like, even in the consideration of who you want to hire before you even start and when do we need them to start? And so that's often a question. I would say once you or the therapist on your team or a specific niche are 80% full, that's when you start looking and starting this process because you're going to take your time and make sure that this is a good fit. It's not like, okay, now we need someone today kind of thing. And so screw yourself over by bringing on the wrong person. So they've gone through all of that process. They sign it. Do you have an onboarding process as well? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what I took that first year before, like between incorporation and hiring on my first student. Like that is what I built. Yeah. Obviously refined it over time, but yeah, they do an onboarding, again, all virtual. I usually do try to meet them in person for like an orientation day per se. I like to get the vibe, I get to know each other a little bit better and just have access to me for all the questions they may have. That may shift to our administrator at some point in time, but we'll But yeah, it's onboarding. So they get an Excel sheet that's all shared with me so I can see their progress. I can see what they're working on. And they can send in any questions. They go through policies and procedures that I've built. They, create profiles for things like Psychology Today and different platforms that we're using. They onboard with our EHR system. They review different things that I might expect of them, like the invoice monthly and different things like that. They get to know our system. So explore the Google Drive, explore our clinical training documents, explore our resources, what is actually available to you. And then I make sure that, everything's kind of up to date. So we get headshots done because I do like consistency and having the same background. So I always, the corporation will pay for headshots for the therapists. And so we usually take about a month to do all the onboarding before they actually start doing clinical work. So, they have a certain time period to kind of complete all these things. My Excel sheet has a due date on it. And in that time period, I'm advertising for them. I'm, putting it out on social media and our newsletter, all that stuff. And the goal is to build a little bit of a wait list for them to have everything in place and have all the training under their belt, be good to go by that start date, which is usually a month after their initial contract starts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I've organized it now. Again, first time my student came on, it was doing everything after the fact, and she didn't have a client for, I think, a month and a half after starting. And that's obviously not ideal. So I learned from there of, if it took a month and a half, this is a good information. Let's start a month and a half early.
Yeah.
Yeah. They create their own bios. I kind of give them a template of what I need from them in terms of creation of biographies for our website and things like that. But I do think it's important for them to have their own touch, their own words. And I think it's a collaborative process. Again, everything is collaborative, but I think over time, I've definitely made it pretty organized, that it's straightforward. They know what they need to do. They know what's expected of them. They know when it's due by. I've kind of created a cadence so there is enough time within that month to do everything they need to do. And then, they let me know if there is changes or hiccups or things that they don't understand or more time needed or whatever the case may be.
I love it. I love what you have come up with. And I think there's a mixture of people who are listening. There's people who are intentional and they're like, yeah, tracking with Haley, I've got all these systems. And then you've got other people who would call themselves an accidental group practice owner. And so now I need to create the systems. And so thank you for sharing your process with this. And for the people who are listening, I hope you hear some pieces in there that can fit for being intentional about who you bring on. I think it's so important for for clients, for the therapist, and for us as group practice owners to have a sustainable business, and taking that slow and being intentional and having the processes laid out. Everybody knows what to expect from the process then too. Hey, there's clarity, and that sets the tone for what's it going to be like to work at this group practice too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like you said, intentionality leads to no surprises for the most part. Obviously, life is always predictable. So no surprises, no like, oh, you want me to do that? Oh, I didn't, like that's what I try to avoid. But also there's no panic. It's not, oh my gosh, I need to do all of these things as soon as possible so that I can get clients because I need to make money. Like there's a understanding that you will not have a full schedule for at least 6 months. Yes. So expect that, right? Like again, I want them to know what's reasonable to expect as well. I don't want to promise or overpromise things I can't do. And it's still never guaranteed. Like, you won't be full for sure, pretty much within 6 months, but you still may not be full 100% at a year from now. Like fluctuate. There are tons of reasons. And that's why I am very intentional about continuing to be creative in ways that I build caseloads as well. So like I mentioned in the beginning, like walk and talk therapy. That was one of my independent contractors who said like, hey, what do you think about this? Interesting. So, I did some research, created a policy, created some consent forms, and we're going to launch it soon. Like it's just,
that's awesome.
But that kind of stuff has to evolve over time. And I think, there is a lot of training and mentoring involved in being a group practice owner with new therapists for sure. But also even with your long-standing therapists, they still need, your time, your energy. They're not just a moneymaker or a passive income. Like you are still required because that's why they're here with you. Yeah. For your knowledge.
Yep. I would say that being a group practice owner is not passive income. It gets a little more passive as you grow and learn and step into leadership, but this isn't something that you just kind of sit and watch go by. Even if you've got all the systems and structures in place, there's still you as part of that component in there. Thank you so much, Haley. It's been so good to learn from you, to hear some of your experience. If somebody wanted to check out your practice or even just connect with you, how would they do that?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me, Lisa. It's been so nice to chat with you and share my experience. I hope it helps somebody out there that's trying to figure it out for themselves. If they want to find me, or if anyone wants to find me in my practice, it's www.therapyuninterrupted.ca. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Therapy Uninterrupted.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for those of you who are listening in today. I hope that you're walking away with a couple of nuggets about how you might tweak your hiring process and onboarding as well in there. And that you're going to listen in next week and hear the experience of another group practice owner, and just know you are not alone as you do this. And so all of Haley's information will be in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.
This is Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Lisa Catallo's Empowered to Lead podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more shows like hers and to grab your free gift from the gift fold, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com.